Welcome to another video, and today we're going to talk about overcoming burnout and resetting dopamine levels. This is a massive and growing issue, and interestingly enough, in 2021, just a few years back, the CDC and the WHO actually listed burnout as a health condition that they now have criteria for, diagnostic criteria for. So this is such a widespread issue that so many people are experiencing. We thought we'd make a video on some relatively simple ways and things that you can do, steps you can take to mitigate the things that are causing the burnout and also start to reset and naturally replenish those dopamine levels as well. So I kind of already alluded to the first one, but number one is through awareness, we always want to be taking a kind of inventory of ourselves, of just check in with yourself and ask, how am I doing? It can be so easy to get caught up in the throes of life and sort of the roller coaster ride of every day, that we can just start kind of charging forward with a lot of momentum, and more often than not, we don't realize that we're burned out until we're already sort of just past that line. And that's usually the indicator. And so cultivating that awareness can, help us sort of slow down as we're approaching that line. But if you're watching this video and you've already, gone over it, you're not alone. I've been there myself many times, and many people are there as well. And fortunately, the brain has an incredible capacity to regenerate itself. This is known as neurogenesis, and you have the capacity to redirect your own brain and start to change it. So Katie, you've worked with a lot of our members. You've worked with yourself through these issues, as I have as well. What is your understanding of how we get into burnout, and most importantly, some of the things that we can do to prevent, avoid, or recover from it?
Yeah, such a good question. Such a powerful topic to discuss, because like you said, this is now an actual condition, because so many people are struggling with burnout. I became burnt out late 2020. When the whole world slowed down, the work that I do actually sped up, and I'm helping. I'm a helper. I help a lot of people. I coach a lot of people, and just with the way things were in the world, it was really hard, and I fell victim to the burnout. And so I guess when I look back at it, preventative, like what could I have done, is giving myself more space, physical space on my calendar, and time to, you mentioned this, check in with my body on a more regular basis. Because generally what happens with things like burnout, chronic pain or other chronic conditions is the body will start by whispering at you, right? It's going to start very low and quiet to just say like, hey, something's wrong. I'm not really feeling great. So what that whisper might be is like that little bit of like that kink in your shoulder, right? Or experiencing headaches once a week. So that's your body whispering and trying to get your attention. And then if you don't pay attention to that and you keep going, the body's going to start to speak to you, right? So you're going to start to see maybe longer periods of time where you're feeling pain, or you're having headaches, or you're just exhausted at the end of the day. And again, if we don't respond to that, if we don't listen to that and act accordingly, the next thing that happens is your body screams at you. And that is what happened to me. Really, there came a point where my body and brain were just like, we're done. We're not doing what you're doing anymore. And so I became housebound. I couldn't do anything. And so preventatively, I would have made more space in my calendar. I would have, done less. I would have listened to myself more, connected to myself more, given myself space and time to check in. And then as a response, like I said, I was kind of forced to slow down, but slowing down has been one of the most powerful things I could do for myself, I could do in my life, was to, like you said earlier, take inventory of like what is actually important in my life, what is actually serving my life and what's meaningful to me, and then what isn't, and start to slowly like peel those things away from my life. And then for me personally, a huge thing that helped me begin to heal was giving myself self-compassion, because when I started to peel those things away, the brain, the judgmental brain, was telling me, you're not doing enough, you're not this, you're not that. And so I had to give myself self-compassion and just reassure, like, you are enough, you're doing enough, slowing down serves you. You're going to be better in the long run. So I gave myself a lot of self-compassion.
Yeah, so important, and something that, it's something that I think everyone in this day and age just about like experiences. And if it takes crossing that line and sort of winding up there, like, I just want everyone to know, like, it's okay,
Yeah, for sure.
I think we're living in a culture where we're just kind of prone to it, and all of that is feedback. If you've gotten to that point, all of that helps us to learn more about ourselves. It helps us to identify, I love what you said, what's important, and have the courage that it takes to discard and say no to some of the things that may not be important, at least in a certain period of time, and really kind of honor our boundaries around that. So it's all part of a learning experience, and if you've gone through it, that's something that leaves you with these indicators, and maybe the next time we start to become aware of these sort of what I call like the flavors of burnout, right? And when we start to get those subtle flavors, we can start to steer away from it. So that brings us toward the next step, is if you've already found yourself there, what's one of the things that we can actually do about it now? We've made that space, we've done those things, taken things off the calendar, said no to what we can, and what would be sort of the next step?
I often think of Doc from Back to the Future, like his hair was all wacky and everything like that. And when he gets electrocuted, like when we get into burnout, that kind of is where we go. We just get so frazzled. And so it's really, really important for us to lean into activities that calm and regulate our nervous system, so we can just come back to this like even keel state. And then we have more awareness, we're in a better headspace where we can then make decisions about, where do I go? What do I do next from here?
I think that's such an important step that we don't want to gloss over and just jump back into life, because we have that sort of internal mechanism that can be wired up a certain way, and we need to take that time to unwind it in certain ways. And as you mentioned, we have a lot of activities on this channel and elsewhere that you can learn ways and techniques of how to actually calm the nervous system. But I've described it before as feeling like a spinning egg, where if you spin an unboiled egg, where the inside is still liquid, and you stop it and let it go right away, it will start spinning all on its own, right? Because the inside hasn't been calmed down. And that's kind of how it can feel if you've been going through this cycle of burnout. The nervous system is really wired up. Okay, we can calm down, we can meditate, we can kind of stop ourselves for a moment, and then once we let off the reins, we find that internal mechanism starts spinning back up again. So that's where I think it's really important to really disengage, to really or engage the parasympathetic nervous system, and to change that wired up feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. We actually have a video on that, about engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. So go to that after this video. It'll be helpful, I promise.
Yeah, and I think that really kind of gets us into like the third phase, which again, having now not skipped over the second phase of resetting, we are now ready to re-engage, right? To start to take steps back into what we were doing before, the things that maybe are obligations or things, but having taken that little reset, the idea is to now really take steps where we're gaining traction. We don't have to withdraw involuntarily, we can stay present, and as I've learned, which is something that's actually been really refreshing, we can actually regenerate throughout the day. And there are practices that can help with this, like Yoga Nidra or NSDR. There's also even subtle things you can do, like wiggling or shaking things out, taking deep breaths, and doing these in a cumulative way. They have this sort of cumulative effect where we can actually learn a different approach. So I think that's, if I were to kind of leave everyone with one key concept, is when you're recovering from burnout, or when you have recovered, it's not about jumping right back into, the way things were. It's about approaching things from a different vantage point, engaging in a different way, engaging in a way where you can be lighter and freer and less burdened feeling as you go through the actions of your day.
Oh, absolutely. We have to understand that this isn't something that can be cured with a 3-day weekend, or a vacation or something like that, because if we jump back into all of the activities that made us sick or burnt out in the first place, it's just going to happen again, and it becomes this really vicious cycle. So, yes, withdrawing, and yes, stepping back, and yes, taking inventory, clearing space, identifying what's really important to you, and then re-engaging really mindfully, back into your life.
Let us know what you guys think in the comments below.